Free Trade Area to West Africa. Uganda Airlines now flies to Lagos, and we have built one of the largest missions in Abuja. We got to work with our brothers and sisters on this. This market of Africa is growing, and by 2045, this will be $16 trillion consumer market. You need to process products here and sell them within the African market. You are in the right place at the right time. Thirdly, African cultures and her people remain one of the most resilient in the world and an embodiment of the future. I would like to encourage you to strengthen cultural exchanges, the film industry to tell African stories to a wider audience, increase tourism arrivals to Uganda, given the fact that we are soon working on the flights to key US cities, investment in science and technology, build data systems for tomorrow's economy, and lift the current knowledge economy in Africa. This is for the youth of Africa who now have a large amount of exposure to the rest of the world, but often their local capacity to compete with others is limited by the low level of industry. This is your market, and you should prepare for them with us. Finally, I welcome you home. This is your homeland, and we want you to know we respect and trust the confidence you have in Uganda and Africa, and we receive you as brothers and sisters who have a voice on the US market and politics. I thank the US government for all the many years they have worked with us on key security, health, education, and diplomatic matters. I have been told that some of you who came early for this meeting have visited the banana project in Bushenyi, met coffee processors and fruits and vegetable producers, and even made orders. I have heard about a company called DET from Detroit, and I thank them for the 600,000 sachets of processed coffee they are lifting. They add on to the efforts of our trade representatives in Southern Europe, who are beginning to ship some roasted coffee, and our country appreciates these kinds of partnerships. I encourage some of you who I have heard are investing in the computer assembly and parts of manufacturing, and those who want to work on data systems with our NYINJI to press hard. We will support you. For all this, I thank you. Africa does not need any aid. We have all it takes. We simply need partnerships to add value and building the manufacturing capacity and provide wealth and jobs. I will be meeting you on Thursday this week, and I hope I can give you our local names as a sign of our hospitality and lasting friendship. It is His Excellency the President who will be meeting you, because this is his speech. He's the one who will be meeting you. So I thank you for your kind attention. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, President of the Republic of Uganda. This is his message to you.
3 back-to-back business summits in 1 week in the cities of London, Washington, D.C., and Chicago. At that time, we were trying to figure out how to deal with the twin issues of how do you recover post-COVID, the economy, but at the same time, how do you craft a new message for the country on how to deal with exports and trade, largely exports, as the oxygen that would underpin that recovery. So we're going through a crisis and we're trying to learn while at the same time crafting a new message. As some of you might know, the Asian countries which were hit by COVID, like us and the rest of the world, recovered faster on manufacturing than Africa, even given what many at the time thought to be a very difficult return to the old manufacturing and distribution chains that the pandemic had disrupted. There was even an estimate I read at that time by McKinsey report, I think, in 2021 of August, that said between $2.9 trillion to $4.9 trillion worth of manufacturing, food processing, pharmaceuticals, transportation, that this kind of value would shift from China and the Far East to regional production centers, one of them being East Africa, and Uganda pre-COVID being one of the fastest growing economies. This shift did not happen because China had taken some time and done some good industrial capacity preparatory work, and we all returned, almost the whole world returned to China and the Far East for industrial inputs, for consumer goods, instead of taking advantage of such a beautiful crisis that we had gone through. Because crises are good turning points to think afresh. So we wasted a good crisis. We wasted a very important inflection point at which Africa's regional manufacturing capacity would have been strengthened so that we could endure further future shocks. Given a lot is unknown in our world, we would have built that capacity to give us better industrial capabilities. Even for America, there was a survey conducted towards the month of April 2021 of 346 companies that were in China, and they were asked whether they would be willing to leave China and return to their home ground, even with incentives and subsidies at home. The survey turned up interesting results. 79% of those 346 firms said we're not prepared to leave China. Well, it shows that economies are planned like raising a child, how you raise a child if you are a parent here. What you put in early will show up later, whether in a good way or a bad way. So Africa hadn't prepared for this crisis and this opportunity, and we missed it. Anyhow, after these marathon business summits in December of 2022, we kept up pressure on the US market. We held several mini events in Washington, DC. We tried to work with some airlines, including ours, Uganda Airlines, for a possibility that, holding factors constant, we would be able to land in Chicago, in New York, in Atlanta at a future date if we work out the modalities. We kept working with
Africa Diaspora 6 Region Association of Illinois. I'm bringing the greetings of the African diaspora in the United States of America, and I'm humbled for Africa Global Chamber of Commerce to co-organize the first Pan-African Congress Business Forum and Exhibition here in the Kampala. The celebration theme is a diaspora homecoming, navigating the next 100 years. This forum and exhibition coincide with the commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the 7th Pan-African Congress that took place here in the Kampala, Uganda. Also coincide with the 62nd Uganda Independence Day that will be celebrated on October 9th of this year. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to wish you in advance happy Independence Day to all Ugandans. Ladies and gentlemen, in 1900, a native of Trinidad, Mr. Henry Sylvester Williams, in association with W.E.B. Du Bois, organized the first Pan-African Congress movement that brought together people of African descent for the purpose of discussing Pan-Africanist ideas. The meeting took place in London, United Kingdom. The common goal of Pan-Africanism is to forge the unity for Africans and the elimination of colonialism in all forms of domination or supremacy. Today, some of the achievements of the Pan-African Congress movement is the creation or the formation of the Organization for African Unity, now the African Union. African Union symbolizes the recognition of the sacrifices of the founding fathers and the unity between Africans in diaspora and Africans in the continent for Africa. African, ladies and gentlemen, today I stand on the shoulders of our founding fathers of the movement, such as I mentioned, W.E.B. Du Bois, Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe of Nigeria, Mwalimu Nyerere of Tanzania, Jomo Kenyatta of Tanzania, Patrice Emery Lumumba of DRC, Sekou Touré of Guinea-Conakry, Kenneth Kaunda of Zambia, Kamal Abdel Nasser Hussein of Egypt, Haile Selassie of Egypt, of Ethiopia, Dr. Martin Luther King of the United States, Marcus Mosai Garvey of Jamaica, Harry Truman of the United States, Nelson Mandela, of course, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of Uganda, and many more who paved the ways for us to be here today. In 2014, I invited a group of African diaspora in the city of Chicago to establish a platform that brings together African American, Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, and African immigrants to do business with Africa. That was the creation of Africa Global Chamber of Commerce with the mission to advocate and promote trade, investment, and cultural exchanges and education between Africa and the global market, including the United States of America. This is accomplished through the partnerships with government agencies, private sector, not-for-profit organizations, and the professional associations. In June 2019, the African Union ambassador to the United States of America, which with a mandate of the African Union, traveled to Chicago and met with a group of African diaspora at the DuSable Museum of African American History. After the meeting, she tasked me to mobilize all Africans of Black origins to bring them together and to preserve our founding fathers' unity legacy. A few months later, I called the same group We decided to establish what we call the African Diaspora Sixth Region Association of Illinois, whose mission is to unite the African diaspora with Africans in the continent to promote African unity, African culture, and advance economic, intellectual, social programs and projects to benefit Africans in the African continent as we seek to build the Africa we want. Since 2022, Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, in partnership with PASAID leadership, with the removal of the Uganda from the AGOA countries, eligibility have yielded a fantastic opportunity so fast in reviving the Pan-African Movement Summit. This time basing on our relations in culture, trade, exports, investments, and tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, we are building an African that soon will be a center of gravity for all Africans in diaspora and friends of Africa in diaspora as well, wherever they choose to be. You can choose to stay in America or anywhere in the world, but the focus will be to build Africa we want. Against a backdrop of historical significance, this forum serves as a rallying point for the unity among Africans, home and abroad, friends of Africa, creating a unique experiences and economic self-reliance that cannot be understated. Therefore, the Pan-African Congress Business Forum and Expo should bring or provide practical steps by which Uganda, the African diaspora, and the Friends of Africa and the Uganda for the purpose of planning as so to achieve the economies of scale which are vital to Uganda and the future economic independence. To imagine that today, 17% of the world's population lives in Africa, 1 out of 4 of the world population will be in Africa by 2050, 80% of middle class in the world will be living in the global south. For as close as 2023, Africa should play a vital role on how to shape the economies, social transformation, health, education, trade of the global south. Now, the question is, how can Africa and Uganda, in particular, play its role to shape economies and achieve the leadership, the leading position in the global stage? The African Continental Free Trade Area, as a few minutes ago, Mr. RWABO showed you, could position Africa among the global leading economies, superpowers such as US and China. EFCFTA is the world's largest African free trade zone since the creation of the World Trade Organization. EFTA is the biggest achievement of the African Union since the creation of the Organization for African Unity. EFCFTA opens a market for 1.2 billion people and the 3.5 trillion US dollars gross domestic product. Therefore, I call upon African governments and the African diaspora to work together, of course, Friends of Africa, to work together and lead these economic transformation efforts. The global Africa diaspora, to give you another point I'm making here, why we think Africa will play a role. The second is diaspora role has to play. Today, last year, the global diaspora sent over 100 billion US dollars to Africa equal to 6% of African GDP, exceeding official development aid program of $42 billion US, and the foreign direct investment, which is equal to $48 billion US. A country like Nigeria alone, its diaspora sent around $20 billion in 2023. Those numbers show that Africa needs more its African diaspora and the partners' investments than development aid programs.
Passate, Mr. ODREK, together with your beautiful wife, thank you for coming and being an inspiration to all of us. And thank you for giving us the word of God. It touches my heart, and I'm sure most of you. Your vice chairperson, Mr. Moses Sabiti, it's a pleasure to see you. Dr. Olivier Kamanzi, thank you too for coming and gracing us with those beautiful words of wisdom and encouragement. The visiting delegates from the Africa Global Chamber of Commerce, thank you for coming. The government officials over here, thank you for coming. The Deputy High Commission and all protocol observed. First, I bring you greetings from my president, who until yesterday, she had the purpose to be a part of us, but owing to circumstances beyond her control, she was not able to come in, and that's why she asked me to fit in those big shoes. My name is George Nholo. I serve on the board of directors for the